Welcome to the Market Me podcast with your host, Mike Moll. Each episode of Market Me deconstructs real campaigns for actual businesses to improve their marketing efforts. Mike is the founder of Social Media House and a digital marketing consultant who teaches marketing strategy to executives and their teams from small business to Fortune 500 companies. Let's get started.
All right, on today's episode of the Market Me podcast, we're talking to Stan Olthuis, painter, sculptor, super nice guy. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me very much, Mike.
Yeah, I can obviously see some of the works in progress and finished products in the background, but tell us a little bit about what you do.
I make art. I think it's art. I've always been involved in making something, writing, drawing, painting, building ever since I can remember. So every opportunity I've had to learn more and practice, I've been doing that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And how do you split up the art for the most part? Because I know you do. Is it mostly painting?
Yeah, it's I really don't separate in my mind what it is, whether something is going to be painting or not, although I do series of stuff. So once I feel that a concept is best made in painted on canvas within borders, then I will make numerous pieces that follow along that theme and hold together in a certain way. But I have a real difficulty in in holding that way. I'm constantly being distracted by doing something else with it, and I get bored really easily. So,
got it. A little bit of ADD. Love it. Love it. So, tell me about how you kind of were you self-trained? Did you go to school for it?
Well, very beginning, there were no art teachers where I was in Northern Alberta, and I was encouraged by an older sister to follow my dream, sort of. But I eventually was able to get to college in Chicago, and so I started studying with a master from Holland, who was really a Renaissance kind of an artist. He was a designer. He created fonts for print. He was a designer, graphic designer. He designed books and that kind of thing. He was a painter. He was a printmaker. He was a sculptor with found materials and fabrication with metal, and so he was a real eye-opener in terms of what's possible, rather than just being a painter or drawer. So I really was I lucked out in meeting this guy.
Amazing. And so what's the main kind of focus, or what do you have a kind of a focus, or is it just I find points of inspiration and kind of branch off and do stuff?
Yeah, I mean, after Chicago, I went to Toronto to the Ontario College of Art, which is now OCAD University, and met, to answer your question in a long way, met some group 11 people who were really doing a lot of expressionism and talking about process and this kind of thing. So that was sort of my guide is what the process is, and got away from planning a product, right? Basically, before that, I was thinking, okay, well, I've got to do something realistic, and I was doing things very figuratively and so on. And the end result was so stressful to try to get to that perfect end result. And meeting people like Tom Hodgson and Udo Kasemets and these kind of guys, I realized the process is really the king in all this. So that led me to be able to just find a concept and go like, okay, what best suits this concept? How can I create a language with this concept that hasn't been seen before? So that became the so now it's a matter. I love drawing. I still always draw. My beginning point is always drawing, but it can go anywhere. Mm-hmm.
Got it. And so where have you seen kind of the most success? I mean, I came across you in Old Town, or Cork. I guess it's Corktown. I don't know. I always get those two neighborhoods confused. But we came across a piece there, and that's how I reached out to you. But have you done a lot of like gallery and exhibit? I know you spent some time in Mexico from our conversations before.
Well, yeah. I was showing in galleries before. The stuff that you're talking about is at Rooster Cafe on King Street, and they're friends of mine who own chain of 3 coffee shops. And I would sort of not show in coffee shops. That's not my sort of my market. Right. But as being friends and being fans of my work, I created some pieces specifically for their Rooster King, and that's been fun. I mean, yeah, that's really good. But no, my focus is really twofold. I have galleries. I'm represented by Abatso in Toronto and Kumamoto in Japan, gallery in one of the outlying cities. And I look for opportunities in terms of fundraisers and that kind of thing. I really like the whole opportunity to give with my art, but it's always symbiotic, and there's always a lot that comes back from that kind of thing. So yeah, and I've got a number of opportunities now with other galleries like city galleries that are gallery museums and so on. So I'm following that, continually following up calls for entry on whatever it is, as long as it suits my style. I'm in. I do things with Saatchi online. I just started another one with Singular, which is a very new online gallery out of Paris, and these guys seem to be pretty good. So I do things like that.
Do you ever submit? I did a bit of consulting with what is that magazine? It's like really popular where you submit different pieces. Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. They're based out of Toronto. You can submit like graphic and paint, like different design stuff into them, and
I don't know right offhand.
And they've got this like really impressive. They have a really impressive print magazine. So the winner of each category of the stuff goes out in their publication. It's a pretty long-running publication.
It's not Canadian Art. They don't take submissions like that, right?
No.
It's weird that I don't know that, but I don't.
Yeah, fair enough. Apparently, like if you're trying to, especially from like from the digital side, it's like photography and graphic. If you've won one of their categories, it's like it's supposed to be really helpful for like if you're looking for like a job in a creative field.
You're not talking about applied arts, are you?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, all right, yeah. Applied arts is really the roots of that is fairly commercial, and I have worked in the commercial area representing other artists. I had a business doing that, and that was always sort of the really the level that you wanted to be if you're a commercial photographer, illustrator,
right.
That kind of thing, graphic designer. Then applied arts was really the place to go.
That's what I was thinking of. A little bit.
Is the guy. He's a Montrealer who started that. Class person.
Yeah, awesome. So how do you, kind of with the goals in mind, how do you think about marketing yourself? You've obviously been in the space doing your thing for a long time. What I'd like to touch on is kind of twofold. What have you done so far, for people that are trying to get into the space? I actually had a painter who was very early in his career on one of my earlier podcasts. And so, I'd love to, have you be able to tell me a little bit about how you've marketed yourself in the past and then kind of where you're going with it.
Well, my marketing has been, as I say, through the gallery that I'm represented with, and I do like the gallery setting. Abatso has a beautiful space. It's on Richmond and in Toronto, and it's one of the wonderful old classic buildings with the hardwood floors and great expanses of white walls and so on. So I love showing there, and I like the one-on-one with the gallerist, and I always really appreciate that. So I'm more a bit of a Luddite in that area where I really like the face-to-face, but I realize that galleries are continually having so much more trouble. And I mean, right now, when we're in this crazy global situation, I mean, I was just about to go to Berlin on Sunday, but I've canceled my flight and everything else. I was going to go to a bunch of galleries again and visit with some of the people that I know there. And it's just not possible. and it so it just drives home again that being online and having a presence there is really important. And it's great that you called me and set this up. It's like perfect.
Yeah, I've actually I was reading a piece in the New York Times. I actually sent it. There's a collector who has a big collection of like torture pieces, but it's like a lot of stuff that like people had presumed was for torture. So it's like a big exhibit that they're working on, and they don't have a gallery now. And I saw this thing in the New York Times actually just yesterday, talking about like the virtual like walk through like live streaming tours, and how even like especially right now people are opting in saying, hey, you know, I can't come, but I'll pay $10 and I get the virtual walkthrough tour with a guide and everything. So it's amazing how technology can kind of keep certain things moving that, you know, may not have been able to go.
Yeah, it's interesting to utilize any technology you can to make it happen.
Yeah. And so it sounds like, sounds like being out, getting in front of people, meeting, shaking hands. I mean, that's been probably the biggest driver for you, which I guess is not a big surprise in that space. Being that you're representing the piece. Yeah.
I mean, right now, Instagram is really my only portal, other than, as I say, Singular I just started with, and Saatchi has been pretty good for me. I've been some nice sales out of that, which is crazy because they have so many millions of artists listed there.
And how does that work? What exactly is that?
Well, it's online, and you're accepted or not. I think it's not too difficult to be accepted with Saatchi, but you set up your own page. You put all your information in. Just a good profile, and then upload pieces of art that you want to sell, and in whatever way that you do. So they will receive clients, and they'll let you know that they've sold a piece, or you can negotiate with the client if they want to, and that kind of thing. And then you can ship it, and they will pay for the shipping, and they insure it, and all this kind of stuff. So it's a pretty safe way to go about it. I mean, when I was living in Mexico, I had an Australian come to Puerto Vallarta, where I was living, and found a piece in a gallery that I had there, and shipped it, and it never got out of Mexico, and there was no answers at all. But Saatchi was so good; they insured it. They paid me full value of everything, including my packing and all that kind of stuff. So it's a real good thing. And I think Singular is I think they've learned from Saatchi, and they're doing a similar thing.
Got it. And they don't sell anything that's a print. Is it just like original? Because I've seen a couple of these ones where they also can do them on like pillows or prints or other materials. You can decide if you want it to go that way. Is this just for the original stuff, or?
They do prints as well.
Got it.
And they gauge how good your original file is to what size print that they will make for it. So they won't allow a low res file to be printed in anything over than what it can do. And I've sold a lot of prints on that site as well. So
got it.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good.
What's been your number one item, or is it just like straight replica prints, or does it go on to other products? Like, is that what?
No, it's just prints.
Just prints. Yeah.
I don't know. I've been approached for doing it on clothing, scarves, and all this kind of thing, and it's sort of cool, but I guess, but it's more. Then I feel more like a designer, and I'm not really interested in having my stuff on clothing like that. I'm still far more interested in having the original. If I'm not selling it as an original or a straight print, I'm just as happy to have it as an installation piece and put it away someplace else afterwards and not sell it. But.
Got it. Fair enough. How many pieces would you say you've made?
Oh, in what period of time?
I don't know.
In the last 10 years, I would say I've probably made 1,000 pieces.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And so, and you had mentioned that Instagram was a good vehicle for you. that's how I originally connected. That's how I originally connected with you. How do you think about Instagram? What are your strategies? What are you kind of doing with it? Are you using it just as a place to put the gallery up, or telling your story, or how are you using it now?
Yeah, I mean, I do like some instant gratification, and that's what that's the initial thing. You know, it's like I just posted something now. It's an old piece from 2013. I posted that today, and it's keen. You know, it's cool to see how people react to that, and so it's that, and I know that I get validation by managing that more so than my site. I think, you know.
Yeah.
My site is there, but I think that it's a little closer. You know, it's not one-on-one, but it's closer, and people can get as close as they want by, you know, it's like your voice messaging was great. I'd never even thought about that with Instagram before. I do it with WhatsApp, but that's awesome.
Yeah, you can also do like straight up like video, like selfie video messages that way too. So I toy with both. But yeah, I mean the response rate and the connection on it works like a charm. So I'm a big fan.
You're more confident in what you're going to do with it. With your immediate moment. Like, oh, I'll probably have something stuck in my nose or whatever.
I never re-record, and I never listen to what I say. I always just hit go and hope for the best, or else I would never send a damn thing. I'll tell you that.
That's probably the way to go.
And do you do stories a lot on Instagram? Do you use those to kind of capture some of do you do any filming of what the art you make?
I don't, but I think it's a good idea. I mean, I've looked at a lot of video over the last little while, just because I think that's probably good. But I haven't done it myself. And again, it's a little bit like the camera in my face. I'm not sure if I'm going to be happy with what I see in a minute.
Yeah.
Someone's doing a video of me right now, and I did an interview with the last show I had, and I just looked at a rough cut, and I was like, oh, do I look like that? Do I sound like that? I'm just...
That's why I never watch. I literally record these. It goes to an editing team, and I'm like, I'll leave it to your judgment. If I say something stupid, so be it. So I try not to listen. I don't like the sound of my own voice. I don't think anybody really does. That's just kind of the way it goes.
I think that is a point.
But I do think there's a couple people that come to mind when I'm thinking about my interaction with their story and I think that there's some lessons to be learned. One of them is from a completely different industry, but there's an Instagram handle called Hardcore Renos.
Hardcore Renos?
Hard, H-A-R-D, like hardcore.
Yep.
He was a filmmaker by trade and then went into renovation, but he only works on like kind of specialized, kind of like really neat, nuanced stuff. So, you know, building, he built a wall with these little like wood pieces, and they were all like built into these octagons, like across really, really, really neat pieces. But he does some amazing camera work where he'll kind of like leave one or two cameras while things are happening, and some of it he speeds up as a time lapse and some things. So I would take a look at some of what he does, because you know, I've never found the idea of someone installing backsplash tile exciting, but like you watch his and you're like, oh, I'll sit here and like, it's like mesmerizing the way he kind of does it. So he does some kind of cool stuff, and it's, you know, he does a lot of to his face, but he also does a lot of just here's what's going on behind the scene. And then another guy, Michael Wills, who's a guy I had on my podcast a little while ago. He was in the NHL for a bit, and he had some brain injury, and he kind of had to stop playing because of the severity of it. But he was painting before and has kind of gone back, and he does a lot of you know, just kind of setting it up and you know, speeding up and moving up and around and towards the camera. So he is the feature of some of them, but he does a lot, like, just, I think people are nosy and they like seeing the process and seeing the behind the scenes. So even if you're not stopping and necessarily talking to the camera, I think it'll help connect people in a bit of a deeper way and maybe bring a little bit of a tighter relationship to the pieces. And the cool thing is you can always use that as promotional material of the pieces,
Right.
kind of like some of the behind the scenes and some of those captures, whether it's stuff on your phone or you just get a camera on a tripod and just set it up and let the video run for as long as it runs and grab whatever you can. But I do think creating that extra layer of personality and letting people kind of see a little bit of behind the scenes, I think a lot of the keys that a lot of businesses as a whole don't consider from a marketing standpoint, and I really try and push people on it, is people are very nosy. People like to know. They just like to have their nose into what's going on. That's why some of the TV and some of the programming out there is what it is, the Kardashians and all these dating behind the walls. I keep hearing about it from everybody. This Love is Blind. Have you heard about this on Netflix?
Yeah.
It's like they're not in the same room, but they have to like talk to each other. And I've had like a bunch of my male friends like, "Oh, you see that episode?" I'm like, "No, of course I haven't." But it's like that behind the scenes and kind of letting people kind of be nosy about it. Kind of draws them in and makes them feel a little bit more connected. So Instagram stories or live or whatever of those things, I think would be a really great resource. It's already in the same wheelhouse as where you're already creating your content online. But I think it'll engage the audience too. And in the time now where, so say you've got 100 people following you on Instagram, on average, only 4 to 8 of those people are going to see a post anyway. So your reach for each post that you make is decreasing. And so by using things like stories, it helps keep you as an engaged person that somebody follows. It's kind of what Facebook was doing years ago, where they were saying, "Hey, you got all this attention. Now we're going to make you buy ads to maintain it." Instagram's kind of going that way. So stories is a good combat to that, because then you're kind of in that bubble at the top. And it kind of keeps people aware, especially if they're already following you.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So
my shyness.
Yes. Yeah, you got to just suck it up, unfortunately. Look, before a year ago, I had not published any video content at all. And then I was like, well, I tried writing. That's not going to happen. And so I just threw on the camera and closed my eyes and hope for the best. So tell me what's on the horizon. What are the big things you're working on now?
Well, I'm working on a next series, which is more wall sculpt. What I'm calling wall sculpture. It's I had a few pieces in the last show, and it was sort of often happens this way where I put a show together, and as I'm working on the show, I go like, "Oh, wow, I could do this too," and then I want to change everything and not show anything that I thought about or was working on before. And this show sort of became that. I postponed it twice in order to build a bunch of pieces, and these pieces were more interactive and in that people can get their hands on it and start manipulating the piece itself. And it started with me just looking at taking something and getting it outside of the frame, which I've been there before, but I sort of went back to a format of painting on a square format or something like that.
Right.
I just broke out of that by breaking the boundaries, and then started doing things that you can manipulate, putting in stuff on lazy Susans that you can turn, and going to a round format, which I've done before and done that on a square, but now I just started working in circular format and building out from the wall. And so I'm doing that and stuff that's, like a bunch of planks of wood that are painted and manipulatable and these kind of things, and rolling kinetic stuff. And so I'm really excited about this whole new phase in terms of these pieces. So that's my big kick, and it's been getting a good reaction in the right places. So I'm trying to, like I was saying, go to Berlin from time to time, and although the scene is not as vibrant as it was there for art galleries, it's still a really great center, and Copenhagen is really interesting to me. I was there last time I was in Europe, and it's just a bunch of really more minimalist stuff, which is also where my work is going to, sort of a reductive kind of art, very minimalist. And when I look at how everything is developed, to me it makes a lot of sense how it's all been from splashing paint around crazily to in figurative kinds of things to where it is right now, where the figure is outside of it, but manipulating the piece now and get that gesture in. So,
got it.
Yeah, I'm having fun.
One other thing that occurred to me. So one thing I advise to a lot of my clients is like, you can take a certain amount of photography for yourself and the videos and all these things. But one thing that is really helpful is user generated content. So for a brand that has a physical product, it's maybe, send us a review or take a picture of you holding the product or unboxing and tag us in it so that we know it's here. And then we also then have stuff that we can share on our stories or as a post. So one thing you may think about is when you've got stuff that people may be interacting with or are going to be close by, maybe even having something that says, give me your opinion, or take a picture with you in it and tag me. You could even do it in a way that says, the best reaction or the best feedback or the best funniest video or whatever it is, maybe wins a print from one of the places where you have it, and then see, that might be able to generate, as people are passing by, tens or hundreds or whatever the case may be, of people saying, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take a selfie with that, me talking about it. They tag you capture that for your own use later, and then maybe gamify it or make them make there be some kind of a giveaway of, hey, I'll give you the best video gets a print or whatever the case may be. But it'll help spark your Instagram. It'll allow their followers to see you getting some attention from someone that you never would have had the opportunity from before. And just kind of a fun way to have people interact with you and your brand a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some what you're referring to, and I've often wondered if that produces results, and so it's interesting to hear. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you never know. I mean, but I mean, I think the bottom line is, it's like your product is different than a product on a shelf, in that the product on its shelf has a call to action. That call to action is buy me. And now yours does too, but there's going to be a lot of people that can't afford the piece that's on the wall. So it's almost you providing a call to action where they wouldn't necessarily take the action by themselves. You really have to provoke it. And to me, even if it only produces a handful of interaction, at least it's like new people, maybe it's new connection, maybe you get a little bit of eyeballs from whoever's following them. So I think it doesn't hurt, even if it doesn't go viral. Like I don't really put much consideration into creating viral content. It's like, if you can create those 2 or 3 opportunities where someone now really likes you, or you met someone and they know the person that buys the piece. Like that's the one thing with social, right? It's like I have a lot of conversations around, oh, well, what is the return on investment if I do 3 posts a week? You don't know, but you could post something, or you could host something like this, then that person begins to follow you. One of your posts shows up in their friend's discovery. They fall in love with you and they own a gallery. Like you don't know.
Yeah.
So creating those opportunities and just creating those touch points wherever possible is always a good idea, especially if you're going to put the time into creating content and having these channels. That's kind of an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, I've always been the have the attitude that I say yes. It's like, okay, somebody asks me if I'll do something and relates to that, I'll go, yeah. There's probably somebody that's gonna that I don't know from this point right now, but you never know. And unless it's somebody asking me for free art, if it's an opportunity that can gauge any kind of new eyeballs, that's good for sure.
Absolutely. Well, look, man, love chatting again. I know I'm staying just up the street from where you were in Mexico in my semi-retirement mode over here in Mexico. But appreciate you taking the time all the way from Toronto. And where can people find you if they want to learn more?
They can get me on my website. It's www.Stan Olthuis, Olthuis, and search for me on Instagram, same name, Stan Olthuis.
Perfect. And we'll link it up in the show notes. Anyway, man, really appreciate your time. Really great chatting, and wish you the best with your new moldable construction pieces.
Thank you very much.
All right.